All right, Maggie, we're just about ready to go. All right. All right, well, good evening. This is Carbon Matters live streaming. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich, and I'm joined by my wife, Maggie, and we're just getting started here. We're a few minutes behind. We are working in a new medium or leveraging a new platform today because this is a special edition. It's going to be a bit complicated because I'm going to be doing some screen sharing, such as I'm going to be doing right here in a couple minutes. We're going to have a guest come in a little bit later. But this is all about, Maggie, the annual salary board that occurs on the first Monday of the new year, unless it's a holiday. Then it's pushed one day. Obviously, it's going to go ahead, take place tomorrow at 2 o'clock. You'll have the annual salary board meeting. Then that'll be followed by the weekly commissioners meeting. So in that first week in January, there's not actually a commissioners meeting on Thursday. So it'll be Monday as soon as the annual salary board meeting is over. Now, the purpose of tonight's conversation is really to explain the process in as much excruciating detail as possible. And why I really wanted Maggie here beside me tonight is because she isn't very familiar with the process. So as I go and attempt to explain it as best I can, and I'm a novice, this is only truly my second one, and it was unique even this year compared to last year because I'm actually a seated commissioner versus last year. We were just kind of brought in to a certain level in the process, not nearly the depth that we were brought into as newly elected board members. So I need to ensure that we have good audio and video. The video, Maggie, looks good?
Yes.
Okay, and what about audio? Can someone give me a thumbs up?
Can we get a thumbs up if you have good audio, if you can hear us?
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
There's no one's doing it so far. There's like,
all right.
There's little emojis there. If you can give us a thumbs up, if you can hear us. Oh, Christian says everything good.
Oh, okay, sounds good, Christian.
Thanks, Christian.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much. So again, part of the challenge is going to be, as I said, I'm going to be doing some share screening. Now, I do have all the screens set up to go. So it's just a matter of me going down, and in lieu of what you're seeing right now, you will indeed start seeing some Microsoft Word documents, a couple of PDFs also. And I have Maggie monitoring right here to ensure that everything is at least visible. And just like always, if you have a question, you can just go ahead, put it in the
chat.
In the chat, or I do have my phone and it's turning on right now. And that's going to be, Maggie, if you could type 570-503-6780 on. And again, that's my cell phone here. As soon as it 503-6780. And I have all the faith in the world that this phone at some point is going to come on. And there it is. Up, there's the Apple. There it is. So it's actually starting.
You had it off all the way.
Yeah, I had it start because we got so many different devices and everything going on down here.
That way I can answer it if it
rings,
if
it gets ring. So, okay, let's go ahead. Let's talk about annual salary board in Carbon County. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the process and then the members of what's called the salary board, because it isn't simply the commissioners who determine salary. So again, as I said, each year, the first Monday, according to the county code, the salary board meets to determine the salaries for the subsequent year. And that's across the board. Look, now, who is the salary board? Do you know, Mace?
The commissioners,
right?
I would say probably the treasurer is in there. Is
No.
Oh,
Well,
the comptroller, like
controller. Yeah.
So Mark Savage.
That is the primary a body that makes it up, but there are ad hoc members, and those are the row officers, the clerk of courts, the prothonotary. As they make motions, they come a temporary member just for the motions under their office, because they have what's referred to as 1620 authority. That's a section in the county code that gives them higher, fire, and supervisory responsibilities for those who work for them. And we're going to bring one of those row officers in a little bit later, and she is going to be able to discuss the motions she'll be making in the establishment and abolishment of some positions, and you'll be able to ask her questions also. So again, the salary board, the standing members, the 3 commissioners, the controller, and that's in the county code. And then as motions are made specific to that row office, they become a member. And then when offices that fall under the courts, the court, a representative from the courts, that'll normally be the chief clerk or administrator, becomes that representative for the courts. And he, like everyone else, like a row officer, gets 1 vote. Now, keep in mind,
Keep going.
keep in mind that while there's the annual salary board, there is also monthly salary board.
That I
So,
knew.
right.
Yeah.
So for when those particular needs to increase salary based on longevity, or changes that need to be made that could not be foreseen during the annual, the salary board will pick them up during the monthly meeting. And again, it's
'Cause
all about,
it would be too long to wait for the annual one.
that's right. And you may go a full year and
Right.
someone might be due their anniversary pay increase. You see that a lot because
Mhm.
there are, you know, if there's a decision to make let's say a 3% pay increase, that will go across the board. And as certain individuals, mostly individuals who are in their first year of county service, reach their 1-year mark, they would get their salary increase then. All right. So
We saw
again,
it also during the elections, like for
well,
trying to get
when we
the
had to hire
hire.
part-time officials,
Mhm, yeah.
exactly. That's a kind of an emergent requirement that you have to respond to. But keep in mind, the salary board set the salaries. They don't set the hours. And I'm going to bring up a slide here, not a slide, I'm going to bring up a spreadsheet, and I'm going to talk about grades and steps and hours, because that is important to understanding. So let's go ahead. Let's give it a go here. I'm going to go ahead.
And I'm smiling because Chris loves his spreadsheets.
Yeah, well,
He's the king of spreadsheets.
All right.
Whoa, that's busy.
It's going to be okay. All right.
Trying to find.
Yep, trying to find it on there.
Okay.
Hold on. But again, we're going to get that on there.
It's,
There's always that little bit of lag time for it to get up. So before, I'm going to go ahead and start
well,
talking about.
Bev is on. Hi, Bev.
Hi, Bev. Hey, and everyone again, welcome. This is Carbon Matters live streaming. This is the painful edition because this is talking salary board. All right. So I'm waiting to see that popping up just so I can ensure that it is indeed, I have a full screen share going on right now. So that should be popping up shortly. All right. So just bear with me.
Ow. Greg Scott said, and whiteboard.
All right.
Right. He is
there
the
we
king
go.
of whiteboard.
Well, what happened was I pulled everything off. I came into a new meeting and I had things previously set up. So here it is. There are 2 scales, right? There's the non-supervisory. So that's kind of your blue collar, gray collar, right? And then there's the supervisor scale. So let me explain. If you look over on the left-hand side, you see that starting at grade 3, 4, 5, keep going all the way down. This actually goes down to about 18, and you'll see on the supervisory, it goes beyond 21. Those are grades, and each position has a grade and a starting step, and I'm going to show that form here. Now, each change in grade is a 5% increase. So if you started at a grade 2, there are no grade 2s. As a matter of fact, everyone's going to be at a grade 4 after this salary board, and you'll hear about that. But between each grade, and they're in yellow, That's a 5% pay increase. Now, if you go across, you have your steps, right? And that's a 3% change in salary as you move left to right. Now you'll see down here, and I'm highlighting 35, 37.5, and 40. That's the number of hours that the individual works. The salary board sets the salary. The Board of Commissioners sets the hours. So interesting. So if someone might be asking, or an officer might be asking, a row officer asking for a pay increase for one of their subordinates, they might say, I want to bring someone in as a 2A, right? So a starting position. Again, this is just as an example, right? So then the salary board can establish that position, but it's only the commissioners who can decide the number of hours. So if it would be part-time, it would have to have a vote from not only the salary board, because that would be the standard starting, right? At 35 hours at 983, it would be 17,890 per, right? But now that row officer could, for justified reasons, seek a 37.5 or a 40-hour work week for that individual. And you can see the more hours you work, the more that individual can make, just as if they're going left to right, but you can also do it by modifying the hours. All right. So a complicated process.
So
but
quick question.
Yeah.
So let's say the row officer would like the person to be full-time, which I'm assuming is 40.
These are all
Oh,
full-time.
Okay,
These
okay.
are all full-time,
Okay, so
correct.
So if
But-
they would want them at 40 hours because they really need someone to be working the max hours,
Right,
but you guys say 35,
right.
there's nothing they can do about that.
That's right, because
Okay.
only the commissioners can decide the number of hours.
Okay.
Right. Now, this would be the hourly rate for a part-timer. Understand, part-timers work up to normally 1,000 hours.
You just said it was all full-time.
Well, this is showing full-time hours, the salaries. If you work 35 hours a week, it would be 17,890, right?
Right.
But what happens, May? Full-time is about 2,000 hours a year.
Oh,
Part-time is 1,000 hours. That's how you kind of categorize it,
okay.
right? So this is if an individual is working full-time, 35 hours a week, they would get 17,890. If they're working 40, you'd actually get in 24,446. All right. So that's on the supervisory scale, right? And then on the non-supervisory, excuse me. Then here is the supervisory scale. And again, it's the same concept that's playing out there. Hold on, let me Command plus. All right. Let me see if I can do this. Make sure. See if I can make that a little bit larger there so I can show that. All right. All right.
I mean, you can see it. It's
All right,
just
you can
really-
see it. Right. So again, keep in mind, we have no grades 1 and 2, right? Anywhere.
So
right.
supervisory starts at 3 and then non-supervisory.
Yeah, and actually you're going to see
Everyone's-
much beyond that,
Okay.
really, for the most part. But again, that is the same document. So let's get rid of that document. So that's just talking a little bit about the scales and wages. All right. What I want to do is now I want to go ahead. Not that. I want to share a document that has the grade listings and positions. All right. And then you're going to see that in a minute. I'm going to have to switch to the sharing here. All right. I'm going to resume the share. What was that? Oh, hold on. What was that?
That sound.
All right.
That's my mini fridge.
All right. Okay.
It makes this big loud noises every once in a while.
Okay. So remember I was talking, let's look at the supervisory. This is every position in the county.
Do you have to have the paragraph stuff on there?
I could eliminate if I could find
Just
the little.
Format. Oh, no, there's a paragraph thing right there. Just unclick it. Unclick it.
There we go.
There you
All
go.
right.
Thank
So,
you.
so that disturbed Maggie. So this is showing all the current grade listings in the county as of 31 December. And you can see all the way up to the county administrator's chief clerk. She's supervisory grade, right? 21.
Oh, wow.
All right. So very high. And you can see these are, again, all the supervisory positions all the way down to, well, we actually do have some 1s and 3s here. Look at that.
Yeah.
You know, so the public defender, the office manager, the archivist, records manager, right? Now, interesting about this, right? This one, senior center services director, aging, those are supervisory, but they're not full-time positions.
Oh, that's
right.
why it's
All right.
lower.
And then you have what's really the county animal warden or running the shelter, right? And then the administrative assistant parking coordinator. So she's responsible for all the parking attendants, or what I would like to refer to as the parking ambassadors. But look, really it's 5 and above, but you can go down to 4. All right.
Okay.
So here's all the non-supervisory positions in the county and where they currently are at, right? What grade they're set on. Now, again, the salary board can make modifications to these grades. And you're going to see as an example of a row officer later. All right. So that's just going through all of those, right? Again, not trying to kill you with details, but just want you to see there's a grade. What you don't see are the particular steps, right? Remember that 3%, because again, remember in between each number is a 5% pay raise, but then this could be a 12A. This one could be
if it was a 12S.
That's right.
It's
so
a lot higher.
A lot higher.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So that's helping set the stage. So these are different little nuances that play into some of the decision making that has to take place. Now I have to say, go ahead.
I don't have a question.
Oh, you look like you do.
No.
So if anyone out there has a question,
you have a question,
570-503-6780, right? 570-503-6780. And again, we're slowly but working into how the salary board actually takes place and the significance of it. So let me get a drink if that's all right.
Sure.
Now, what you didn't see in that salary board are all the union positions, right?
You should have color coded them, because you could have had all the positions that were ASB or whatever that is, ASME, and you know what I mean?
No.
Like each union.
No, those aren't union positions.
Oh, they're not.
The union positions
they're not
are
in there
actually
at all?
outlined in 4 different union contracts plus a memorandum of agreement. So we have about 400 employees, just under 400 employees of the county, just under 300 are full-time, 300 of them are full-time, about 100 are part-time. And those 100 part-time more or less also include the seasonal workers, like the lifeguards who come in, some park rangers come in, some maintenance guys come in the summer. Have 117 plus 6, so 123 for all intent and purposes, union members out of the 400. So you have the ASME residual, right? And that's a significant number. That would be 34 individuals. That's individuals who work at 911, Area Agency on Aging, Parks, our mail clerk, tax claim, tax assessment, GIS, maintenance, archives. All right. So that's one of the ASME unions. Then you have the ASME court employees. That's 22 court employees. You'll see adult probation, juvenile probation, and domestic relations are where they come from. Then you have the Teamsters. Teamsters is the largest union. That's primarily prison corrections officers, full-time and part-time. That's 47, right? That's the Teamsters. Now, supplementing this really is a memorandum of agreement for the sergeants. So the sergeants don't fall under that particular
Teamsters.
contract, right? But again, this is a member.
Is it still Teamsters?
Yes, they still
okay.
fall under the same
Mhm.
protections, pretty much the same agreement as the other corrections officers and the Teamsters. There's nuances though. Again, that's a memorandum of agreement. It's not a union contract. Then finally, there's the Sheriff's Association, and that's 14. That's the deputy sheriffs, the sergeant, and the lieutenant. All right. So again, those salaries are handled by contract. Now, interesting, the AFSCME residual, so that's the 911 Area Agency on Aging, that one expires December 31st of this year. We have of 2020. So we've added an extra month to negotiate it. We still have to negotiate the economics. All the other things have already been kind of worked out more or less, but economics is always the most challenging. That's basically salary, right? It is probably the most important part of economics. Now, we have 3 other union contracts that will renew at the end of December in 21. It's important to know. So within 12 months, we have all 4 of our union contracts up for renewal. You got to keep that in mind. That's going to play out when you talk about the Chris Lukasevich, or I talk about the Chris Lukasevich philosophy on pay raises. It's important because there's a vicious cycle argument that's driving me crazy here that we're going to have to talk about. All right. So I showed you the grade listing. I showed you grade and step. What I'm going to do right now, before I continue talking, I'm going to take us to the agenda that we're going to be using tomorrow. And then I'm going to give some highlights of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about philosophy, and then we're going to start working through it. All right. So just give me a second here. I'm going to get it up here particularly. All right. I'm searching for my agenda screen, which we know is hidden here somewhere on Microsoft Word. Hold on.
It was.
Hold on. Yeah, I'll find it. Yeah, I'll find it. Oh, agenda right there. Right? There it is. All right. Oh, that's not. There it is. Hold on. There it is. All right. There it is.
The P.
Oh, that P is driving you crazy, huh? Yeah. All right, is it up there? Yeah. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I can go to 150, I think, right? Even.
Sure.
All right. So this is going to be the agenda that we're going to be following. But first, let me talk about a couple comments that I have down here. And I think the first one I want to talk about is there are individuals right now earning about $10.32 an hour. I looked since coming into office at all the duties and responsibilities of the positions. I was provided those from HR. And talking to my fellow commissioners, we came to the agreement based upon the importance of having strong salaries that'll attract people into county government at the most basic level, to include the part-timers and summer hires. We felt it was absolutely necessary to get everyone up above $11 an hour. So right now, our lowest people are right around 10.30 some an hour. So you're going to see a bump up where a lot of the motions are going to be really taking people up above the $11 mark. So there will be no longer anyone in county government who is simply earning in the low $10 range. Everyone will be up over 11. And I looked at the duties and responsibilities and the value that they bring in the county. And I don't think there'd be any argument that if you're going to attract decent people of good skill set, you got to pay them right. And we're working towards that. Again, though, you do have to balance that with a budget. and with the tax burden that it provides. Because I'm going to give you an example for the,
Can I interrupt you for a second?
yeah,
I think for this part that you're not talking about the agenda,
yeah.
it would be better probably to have them looking at. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a great point, Meg.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, because
you
you're
know,
just talking, it's a talking and in
a talking, not even a talking head.
It's
Right.
like a
No, that's a
page.
great point. No,
Yeah.
good. Thanks so much. Right. So I want to highlight, what does a 1% pay raise cost you, the taxpayer? About $75,000 for non-union. So you take those 123 positions that are union. So all the other employees, right, almost 280 of them, for every 1% pay increase, that's $75,000. So what happens on the annual salary board, when you're talking about a pay increase, you're not talking about a 1, a 1.5, or a 1.4. You're actually keeping everyone on those grades and steps. So you're talking about a 3% pay increase. So for the Board of Commissioners to approve across the board pay increases, that would be $250,000 for those non-union members. Now understand, the union contract stipulates the base rate for union employees, but every one of those contracts calls for an annual 3% increase. So the vicious cycle I'm talking about is, colleagues will say, well, we can't not give everyone a 3% because we're giving it to union, right? Yet they don't want a hard bargain with the unions. So you have this vicious cycle. Well, we can't give we have to give the union 3% because guess what? On January 4th, 2021, we gave everyone else a 3%. So what is the union going to say in December when they're negotiating? You know, the 3 that are coming up, or in January, they're going to say, well, we have to have 3%. You just gave everyone else 3%. It's that vicious cycle. And there's only one commissioner willing to break that cycle. You know, that's the reality. You know, only one salary board member willing to break that cycle. And I'm going to talk about my philosophy on pay raises here in a couple minutes. But again, I think it's important to understand $250,000 of tax dollar money goes into a 3% increase. But wait, that ain't all. Because that $250,000 pay increase, the employer has to pay FICA, Social Security, and Medicare. So that's another about 7.65% on top of that. But wait, that's not all, right? You're waiting. I can see bated breath.
Well, it's like, I'm trying to think of what else.
Retirement contribution,
retirement,
right? We have to match, the county has to match the contribution.
Right.
So a 5% contribution like mine would be matched. So you're talking $250,000, but really it ends up being $275,000 to $280,000 pay increase. That's before you add in the 3% of those 123 union personnel, right? So we're probably talking, you know, $400,000. Now think about this. Wait, is this in the budget? Is there a budget line for salaries in the just approved in December 2020 budget? Wait, there's nothing that says salary. Why? Because the salary board hasn't provided the guidance for pay increases. Is it the cart before the horse, or before the cart, right? So where does the money come from in the budget if the salary board tomorrow would vote for a 3% pay increase? Because that 250, and what I'm saying is $280,000, where's that coming from? Well, what the county does every year, they have about a $600,000 contingency set aside in the budget to cover the possibility of a pay raise and emergencies.
Right.
So that's how that works. You know, and I'll hit one more on that $11 an hour. Keep in mind, we're competing with counties all around us. Larger counties who have much stronger revenue bases, tax revenues. Think of the Lehigh Valley,
Right.
Lehigh County,
Industries.
Northampton County, right? even up in
Even-
Monroe and Luzerne
Even
and
Schuylkill.
Schuylkill. They
Yeah.
all have, again, stronger populations and much more tax revenue coming in. So of course, they're paying higher salaries. And some people, might want to take that commute up into that area, sacrifice some quality of life for a few extra bucks. Keep in mind, turnpike tolls are going up 6%. Gas
That's
is
if you
going
have
back up.
Easy Pass.
If you have, right.
Yeah.
So all these things, people consider, but again, you got to keep those salaries going up. All right. All right. So let me talk, before we go on to the actual agenda, let me talk a little bit about my philosophy or my position on salary increases. I think there could be an analogy here to just because you participate in an event, in a sport, doesn't mean you should get a trophy. So that equates to just because you show up for work doesn't mean you should get a pay increase. So presence
Above.
well, that's coming up. So presence, performance. So what do you get for presence? For coming to work every day in Chris Lukasevich's perfect employer world, you get a cost of living adjustment. I think every year we should do our best to ensure our salaries are not eroding. All right. So
I
this,
agree with that.
right? So again, that's across the board. As long as the budget supports it, it's not being an overburden on the taxpayer, right? You pay that cost of living. This year, what is the cost of living based on the CPIU? So the CPIU, right, is the inflation rate, but that's based on urban, right? The Philadelphia Camden region that we're in. Now, there is also the CPIW, which is based upon what's specific cities, right? But we fall under region. That's the most accurate one. Again, we don't want to be looking at Philly, Pittsburgh, New York, or a specific city, excuse me. We want to be covered under region. That's the most accurate. The current year, it's 0.4%, so less than 0.5%. So would it be fair to give county employees at least 0.5%? Absolutely. Now, you could say you want to go the 12 months because only 10 months have been reported so far for the CPIU, right? And that's the Consumer Price Index. Now, for the 12 months, so if we look 12 months back, so that would be November, December of 2019, plus up through October of 2020, it's 0.8. So just 1%. So you can decide.
You can say one.
You can say one, and one
it.
is a lot easier to change all those tables because right now they're all set at 3%, right? So if you want to make that Excel formula a little bit easier, and actually it's really not because it's an Excel formula. Instead of putting 0.4 in there, you put one. But again, one keeps it nice and clean. Round it up to one, everyone across the board.
You're actually getting a little bit more.
You're actually getting a little bit more than inflation. Now, the challenge is, how do you figure out performance? How do you provide merit increases? And that's a problem that has to be worked out. Well, that's the second part.
You said
for everyone across the board.
Yeah, you agree with everyone across the board getting
cost of living to match the CPIU. Correct. So those who go and be above and beyond, so they're in that excellent or very excellent evaluation category, right? They should get recognized for that performance.
If they're working harder and they're busting
they're
their butt,
more creative with initiative, getting things done above and beyond simply showing up. And just like in any organization, any business, some people just show up, right? But we want to be ensuring we're providing merit increases. So we're keeping the best, the brightest, the most creative, the hardest working. And again, there's not an easy formula for that. And there are pros and cons to merit-based pay raises. But again, I believe the county needs to get there.
What that does in a way too is if someone sees in an office that one person got a higher raise because they were really working hard, that's either going to make everyone else work harder,
Right.
or they're going to make that person's life miserable. Sorry,
Right.
Just kidding.
But
Just
no,
kidding.
again, it's the
No,
same
but it's-
effect as certain
it's-
people may decide, well, we're all getting 3%. Well, why should I work any harder than the slacker?
Right.
Right. Now, it may be something personal, which I would like to think why you strive for excellent regardless of what others say or do. But nonetheless,
It depends on where you've worked in your work history, as far as like the work ethic.
right.
You
Work
know,
ethic
if
is
you're
extreme.
around people who are, hard chargers, who work hard no matter whatever pay they get, then that's going to be your work ethic. You're
Right.
going to always give it your 100%, or
Right.
110.
Right.
But
Right.
you're right. It's if everyone's getting a raise, the same raise, then what's to motivate you to continue to be a hard charger?
Right. And so what's going to happen tomorrow? The salary board, the motions are going to include a 3% pay raise. And you know where Chris Lukasevich will be voting on that 3% across the board. I'll be voting no. And I will clarify that with my philosophy about the CPIU should be used for inflation-based cost of living adjustments. And beyond that, it should be merit-based. Now, the argument's going to be, but we're giving the union all these 3% raises, so we have to give it to everyone else. Well, I'm ready to break that vicious cycle, right? You gotta stick the stick in the spoke of the tire of that bicycle at some point. And I'm willing to stand up and do that. I'll take the heat for it. That's fine, because I have to represent the 64,000 people that aren't county employees, who in addition to the county employees have to pay that tax bill. What's fair is fair. So again, cost of living adjustment, and then we need to work towards that metric, figuring out how we're going to do merit-based in the future.
As a taxpayer, I would prefer, if there is going to be a raise, to be going to someone who's working hard, or doing their job as hard as they can, and not going towards someone who's just warming a seat.
Yeah.
Like,
and I
that
will
would
tell
drive me
you,
crazy.
even at will positions in the county, it's extremely, extremely, extremely hard to get rid of someone. Extremely hard. And a lot of it has to do with liability and legal issues. And
people who know that can
of
just sit there and
that's right.
do the bare minimum, if that even.
Right. So I will keep in mind, Social Security increase this year was only 1.3. So we're giving Social Security recipients, the majority of them, senior citizens, 1.3. We're going to give county employees 3%. I don't know about that, right? Federal civilians getting 1% pay raise. County employees, they're getting 3%. Matter of fact, I think we're even getting state employees might be the exception to that. And we know they're overpaid for sure. Matter of fact, I think they get paid, their pay increases come twice a year is the way they do it for state. I was looking at that. So again, I'll be voting no across the board on non-union pay raises, right? Keep in mind, each 1% is $75,000.
It seems like a lot.
It is, but then I will eventually, with a caveat, vote yes to the union raises. Well, why is that, Chris? You're against 3% across the board seniority longevity. Because the previous board made a contractual obligation that I feel I have to stand behind. Now, I will caveat my vote about breaking that vicious cycle and taking a hard line in future negotiations when it comes to economic terms.
Which there is coming up in December.
Well, no, they're actually for one AFSCME union, it'll be taking place this coming month. And then you have 3 more that will be starting later in the year for contracts that expire. Again, it's not undervaluing what union members do. It's valuing those highest performers. And again,
and it's union looking members, out for the taxpayers,
which is ultimately my greatest responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? Those 64,000 residents who are not county employees. because I answer to them also.
You know what this reminds me of? Like
No.
how everyone has that beef with Congress votes for their own pay raises, and there's no one to stop them from saying, you know, like there's no one to stop them saying, wait a minute, you already get paid so much, and you don't really do anything for it. Half the people don't show up to the votes and stuff like that, you know. But there's no one to say you can't do that.
That's
They
right.
just voted in and they get it. And so it's like this is what the feeling that I'm getting. It's like, you know, it's like the county is making decisions on doing pay raises that are good, you know, like it's like, and there's no one like the taxpayers are sitting here going, hey, wait, no, don't do that, because we're like having to pay all these taxes, and they're like, yeah, let's get 3%.
Well,
Let's get 3%.
Well, no, see what happens is, and again, county government fears transparency. And this is what this is about. I'm trying to help educate you. Again, this is a learning process for me. It's a learning process for you. I want you to be more informed citizens. I want you to be voicing your concerns, because what I'm going to hear is, you know what, on Tuesday's Times News, Tuesday's social media, there's going to be there'll be few people who are complaining about certain county employees got a 3% pay raise and I'm not getting any. Well, you know what? Your voice doesn't do any good after the fact. Your voice only has the possibility to influence my colleagues before the fact, you know? So if it's not this year, then next year. But guess what? Every year you wait, that costs us another $280,000, which is getting compounded by another 3% every year. They did a 3% last year. They're going to do a 3% again this year. And you know what? There are some people who are fully deserving of that.
Yeah.
But again, there's no way to measure that right now, because this is all about longevity. It's not about cost of living or inflation. It's not about performance. It's simply about presence. And I don't support that. So did you want to comment? Hey,
Well,
first, let me say though, 570-503-6780. You can call, because we're going to jump into the agenda now. This is going to be a long one. We got someone in the waiting room, I know, coming on here in a few minutes.
Yep.
And we'll be jumping to that row, officer. Or you can go ahead and put it in the chat room right there on the C4 Facebook page.
What I was going to say was, because you keep alluding to this, but you never come out and say it, is
Okay.
how do you determine who should deserve to get higher than a 1%?
That's right. Well, there's an evaluation system in the county, right? So again, you can set aside X amount of dollars for merit-based pay increases based upon the evaluation system. And I know from my own experience in the Army, there are ways to prevent inflation of evaluations, right?
Right.
I will tell you, in the Army, to get what we call a top block,
Yeah.
you could not go over, I could not as a commander, top block more than 49.9% of my individuals.
Right.
If it did, that individual was actually penalized. And so was I as a commander would be also. But that individual, instead of a top block, he would get what we call center of mass.
Right.
You know, so there are built-in controls to ensure that that merit is truly accurately based upon performance, and then inflation, the chance of it is mitigated.
Right.
But
yeah, I was going to say, that was one of the things in the military, that you were always gunning for that top block.
Yeah.
You wanted that, because that meant that you were, you know, going above and beyond.
Yep.
And center mass is kind of like, and even though you say center mass, that's where the majority of the people are. If you got a center mass, you're like, man,
yeah. And
it wasn't even a good thing. It was like, even though saying you're average, it was a bad thing.
Right.
And anything below center, forget about it.
Now, I will tell you, the evaluation system in the county is broken, as broken can be. And again, I put out in a couple of weeks, the last Thursday in January, I will be doing my self-evaluation and assessment right here on Carbon Matters. Yeah.
There's a comment by Kayla. Hi, Kayla.
Yeah.
There are row officers who agree with merit-based.
Yep.
It would need to be uniform. if you will, so that we are all evaluating against the same
You're right.
standards, so
Yep.
that rating is less objective.
Yep.
We do utilize employee evaluations, but they are not utilized by the county as they should be. It's an incentive and hold employees accountable.
No, absolutely, Kayla.
Holds
Yeah,
employees
and
accountable.
part of the problem, Kayla, is remember, the commissioner's policies are truly only enforceable by the commissioners for those departments that fall directly under them. You keep seeing carbon for home rule behind me. The only way we can get across the board evaluations, uniform policies, and enforceable is by home rule. It doesn't allow it. As a row officer, you know, right? Hire, fire, supervise. You can do those evaluations or you can't. But let me tell you what's going to happen in January. What will be for next year's budget, 2022. Last January 6th of last year, the commissioners stated that beginning in fiscal year 22, all requests for salary increase will be accompanied by the most recent evaluation. I will also tell you, any request for a pay increase that goes up for a vote and does not come with an evaluation, that has one no vote. That's Chris Lukasevich. I said it before, I'll say it again. In 2022, if there's a request for a pay increase beyond the consumer price index urban, and it doesn't have an evaluation, that's one no vote. Again, I'm only one of 4 or one of 5, but again, that's one no vote. I'll stick to the principle, stick to the philosophy. And those of you who are out there doing your evaluations, evaluating your employees fairly, hats off to you. I appreciate it. It's tough to hold the standard, but please do it, because I know we can institute change, positive change. If we stick together, we can have a better county employees, and we can ensure that we're putting the money into those employees who truly deserve it and are making a difference.
And I'll go back to a point that you made earlier about how hard it is to get rid of some people. And I will say this, that the military used this system, evaluation system, as a way to establish history of showing that a person was continually not going up to conduct and to the standards.
It's the standard.
And if you could show that someone wasn't performing up to standards, then you could have an argument for them being separated from the military.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the only way that you can actually get rid of some of these, dead weight people that are in your office that won't do their work, much less the minimum.
Right.
And so if you do an evaluation and you're honest about it, you're not just giving everyone, oh, you're wonderful, you're such a great employee, thank you so much. No, you tell them you have not performed to standard. This is the standard. You have to do at least this, and if you don't have those kind of things, then So anyways, that's a good way.
All right, so let's go ahead. I'm doing a complete screen share here. I just noticed that, and that's good. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to shrink that down. And what everyone should be seeing here, it should be popping up. This complete screen share should be changing momentarily here to the particular window, which is going to be the agenda. And Kayla, if you do want to come into the Zoom room, if you're not in your pajamas or something, when I get to your portion under prothonotary, you're more than welcome to do so. All right. So, all right, let me get back here to this full screen.
If I can get the number, I can. Oh no, then anybody can get on.
Well, she could text to 570-503-6780, and you can. Yeah. Well, I can admit just her. Okay. You can put that in. Hold on there.
Do you want me to put it in the comments?
Hold on. Yep. Oh yeah, you could.
Yeah, the meeting.
Right, that's the meeting.
Yeah, I'll put it in.
It's up, isn't it? I can. Go ahead if you can grab that quick, and then we'll move on in case she wants.
You can go on. I'll do that.
Well, no, I have to do the screen love. 859-6786-1736.
Okay.
right? Code is 906206.
Right.
906206.
All right.
Good.
There you
Okay.
go, Kayla.
All right. So I'm going to jump to the agenda, but I want to show my preparation for the salary board. And again, it truly is somewhat complicated as you first get in. So here's my background book, right? It
Can't see
had,
it. They can't see it.
oh, okay, hold on. So this is my background book that I use, right? And I'm going to kind of go, there's all the personnel listing, right? There are all the grade listings. Then I have, right, all the exhibits, right, that I maintain. Now, this is from January of 2020 that shows me the position and all the salaries. This is Ask Me Union, Ask Me Courts Union, right? So all the different salaries, that's all of these, right? Then I go back and I reviewed all the salary board agendas. Oh, that's all right. Hold on.
Little fail with the
The 3-ring binder.
ring binder.
I'm sure, hold on. I'm sure it's a county purchased one, right? Right? That Mason, right? All right. Plus reviewed all the salary boards over the previous year and all the notes to understand what took place and what justifications. All right. That's the background, right? All right. In addition to that, I showed you the 4 contracts. Now I know those. Then there was also these blue, right? Performance justifications, personnel justifications, excuse me. So every department head, every row officer had the opportunity to fill out these forms and seek from the salary board on the agenda a request for salary increase, establishment, or abolishment of positions. And these were all reviewed in executive session. And really what came out of these discussions were, one, an understanding of the needs or wants of the row officers, department heads, and the courts, and then an agenda. I think the first time, now Wayne's been here, 2 decades, and this has been the first time that every row officer, the courts, and every department head had an opportunity to present their hires, their abolishments, or their increases to the Board of Commissioners and the comptroller, who makes up the salary board. The first time that has occurred, right? It's so important. If that particular department head, let's say GIS, wants to make the case, they should be able to come to the commissioners, the salary board, which includes a controller, and make their case. Every department head, every row officer, and the courts had the opportunity to present in person or via Zoom their argument of their want, their needs. All right. So now for the actual salary board, what is prepared, right? So you see, definitely have the agenda, right? The agenda is going to be critical. That was formed up. Then after the agenda, right? Remember I talked to you about the understanding the super, fail. Hold on, pull that out. That's good.
Another
Yep.
3-ring
WB
binder.
Mason, WB Mason. You need to get the locking ones, need to talk to the staff, the locking ones, right?
That's
So
dangerous.
these are the pay scales, right? You want to be cognizant of that, right?
So we know supervisory and non-supervisory.
That's right. We know that. We know grades 5%, steps are 3%, right? And again, the grade listing, right? Then here is with a 3% pay raise. With the 3% pay raise is every position and their salary. Some positions have an annual salary only because of certain nuances in the system. But because of recent overtime law modifications, almost everyone is now at an hourly rate. So this is for every entity, the courts, row offices, the different unions, right? And they're all in order so they can follow along. And then there's a lot of the background information that was presented during different sessions to help justify different cases that were made. All right. So that's some of the preparation in the material that is prepared to make informed decisions on salaries. All right. All right. All right.
Put that back
Let's
in
get
there.
the agenda. All right. Let's find it.
We already had it.
There it is. Share. All
There
right.
it is.
All right. So it should be coming up hopefully here shortly. Right.
See, you had been talking all that time with just this one screen.
Oh, yeah. It would have drove people crazy as much
Just a
as it
little
drove
bit.
me. Is it up there yet?
It's coming. It's coming.
How much is the lag?
It's there now.
Okay, all right, let me stick my, you know what, I'm gonna look at this agenda too. This one helps me a little bit. All right, back into my WB Mason non-locking 3-ring binder.
Defective.
Defective because it opens up when you don't want it to, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, geez.
and then their defective 3-hole punch.
Punches because
Their
it
holes
doesn't
aren't
line
big
up.
enough. No, that's
Oh.
probably operator error, headspace and
Okay.
timing there.
Hi,
but-
Pete.
All right.
We'll take chances.
All
Say
right,
hi.
annual salary board. Hey, thank you all for joining us. Marathon session. We're already on an hour, but we're moving along. We're probably in our last 30 or 40 minutes. I'm going to go over the annual salary board agenda. We've been, oh, yep. And I know we got one guest who will be coming in. Matter of fact, here shortly. So, okay, so here's the agenda. Approval of the minutes of the monthly salary board. So we did have a salary board on December 3rd, right? Here are the
They can't
minutes.
see. They can't see.
Okay. Yeah, they can in that one too. They should be,
Oh,
you might be able to see.
Are
Are you able?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, right? So you
Yeah.
see in the little one, there are the
Yeah.
minutes, the minutes that are to be approved, right? So we got those, reviewed those, and those are an accurate reflection of what occurred, at least from my reading of them. Guests concerning salary board business, you have till 9 a.m. tomorrow morning
Right.
to email your public comments. CCCOMMIS@ptd.net. There it is. Ready? CCCOMMIS@ptd.net.
Wait a minute. I need my glasses.
CCCOMM,
So commish.
Carbon
commiss-
County Commiss with one S
Right.
@ptd.net. All right, that's where up until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, you can submit any public comments, right? All right, there it is. That's the opportunity. That's what a most recent change that we've instituted. All right, so that's great. Again, it's because of the COVID stuff. All right. All right. So look at that. A multitude of executive sessions were held, right? And some of these were literally all day sessions, you know,
Usually-
obviously a lunch break and stuff. But,
Usually it's only like one,
Mhm.
if that. And now it's like
Right.
1, 2, 3.
So again,
4,
and that was
5,
all
6,
preparation
8.
to have the conversations with the row officers, department heads, the courts, and the salary board. All right. So the first thing that is going to happen, and I was talking to you all about, right? There's going to be a motion, right? To set the positions for the court offices, right? So like, again, I'm holding up, there's that binder, what is my tab C, where I have exhibits J1 through J6. That is basically requesting a 3% pay increase across the board for those non-union court employees. Next,
Go ahead and highlight it. Because
right, that was the one we were just at right
Yeah.
there, right? So then that'll be followed up. The ASME court appointed officials, right? And again, they fall under the AFSCME contract, right? That is the one that will expire in 2021, December, which calls for a 3% pay increase. Because it is a contractual obligation that the previous board agreed to, I will support that, but with caveat. All right. Next, and then we're going to roll through these, right? The row officers. So I'm going to go down a few, and then I'm going to bring in our guest row officer. And again, in my handy dandy book, right?
Treasurer
There.
is a row.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
that's
We
right.
have a dozen, right? With right here, handy dandy book, lists every row officer in agenda order and exactly what the increase salary will be, their grade and step. It'd be pretty neat, wouldn't it, to be able to see what the existing salary is, but we know it's going up 3%. You subtract 3% from any of these numbers.
That's what you're gonna.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The only ones who will not be getting that 3% annual are new employees who have not yet made reached the 1 year point. Their 3%, if this is approved, would take place on their anniversary date. All right. All right. So that's the controller. Chris votes no. Treasurer votes right here, right? My exhibit R9, right? I'll be voting no. And again, it's not that individuals there are not deserving of more than the CPIU, right? But again, I
It's
will
trying to
retain.
break the cycle.
It's break the cycle. What I believe is an appropriate modification, amendment, a modification to the agenda, excuse me, would be to go ahead, make the motion for a 1% across the board salary increase for non-union county officials. And everything else should be case by case. Create some chaos, absolutely. But you know what? It's, the hard right over the easy wrong in Chris Lukasevich opinion. All right, I'm just
Refer
making
to
a note.
yourself in third person.
Oh, that's MacArthur used to do
I
that.
know.
I
That's
know.
not right.
Yeah, American Caesar. I read the book. All right, public defender, right?
That's Mike Greek.
No, that's
no.
Greg Musso.
Oh, sorry.
The public
Great.
defender.
Yeah,
You're
public-
talking
you're right.
DA.
No, you're right.
All right, all right. Recorder of deeds,
Deeds.
right? Again, all those. These are all no's, right? The coroner. Those guys have been busy this year, unfortunately, really, with COVID and stuff,
Yeah.
has really been with Bob and those guys really, really challenging. All right, the
Oh,
district
there's the
attorney.
district. There's
All right,
Michael
so here
Greek.
we are. Right, so what you're going to see, I do have some of my own annotations here that are not on the agenda. I did a change of status thing. All right, so first there's going to be a motion to set positions and salaries according to what's in the book of knowledge, right? The exhibits, right? But also, and I will be supporting the establishment of a victims witness coordinator. Mike made a strong case for that. I will support that motion. But what he's doing also, he will be abolishing the position of 2 part-time victim witness coordinators. Now understand, at this point, Mike is part of the salary board. So it's the 3 commissioners, the controller, and in this case, the district attorney. All right. And then I believe it was Kayla who was on,
Yeah.
right? And again, color does not reflect my vote. Color is just, I had them all color coded because I was bouncing them off other documents. So it doesn't matter if it's red, yellow, green, blue. Motion to set the positions. That's the across the board that I will vote no on. Kayla and I have gone a little bit back and forth on this one. This is a part-time clerical position, right? Which is focused on, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kayla, this was the position that was a temporary position for a few months that was going to be used for passport processing. And that's what it is. It's it's processing passports, right? Receiving them, moving them on to U.S. Department of State for actual issuance. Now, the way Kayla makes her case for this is the revenue that it generates. So this part-time position will generate, if I recall, Kayla, I think it was, there would be a net gain of about $34,000 to the county if this position was established based upon previous years. All right. So right now going in, I continue to be a no vote on this because the majority of these passports are actually to citizens not from Carbon County. I
Right.
believe the focus should be Carbon County. Now, the dilemma is here, and it's a great argument, the revenue it generates, right? I was primarily opposed to this during COVID because I was not open to bringing
Encouraging people from
encouraging-
Luzerne, which is like one of the worst COVID
or
places.
any other county, because we were maintaining the lowest rate
Rate.
of the
surrounding counties.
contiguous counties. So that's going to be a tough one. Like right now, I'm still at the no position, but you know what? I haven't made up my mind on this one. But again, I'm one of 5 votes, so I can hold the principle, and you know,
Doesn't matter.
it may not matter. But I could go, just to sound like a good guy, I could say, oh yeah, of course. But that's not how I roll, right? I put it straight out there, but you know what? And tomorrow, it's water under the bridge to me. And that's how it should be for everyone, because it's nothing personal.
It's not personal.
It's philosophical, you know? Ooh, all right. Now, right? And so then you also, and this is what I was talking about, here's that part-time position that is being abolished because it was a temporary part-time, right? Whereas this one is a full part-time. And you'll also see it's excluded from the retirement plan, right? Because they're not anticipated to work more than 1,000 hours.
Which makes
Now-
a difference.
Oh yeah, big difference, because benefits are probably 25 to 30% of the salary, you know?
Right.
Now, if this individual would get more than 1,000 hours and work over 1,560, they would have to be covered under our medical plan. If they work 2,000 hours, well, then they're in the retirement plan also, right? So these things all add up. The Register of Wills, Clerk of Courts, again, changing first and second deputies. And again, that is beyond, these two are beyond that 3% annual increase. These are additional requests there. All right. So, okay. So the phone?
No.
What? I'm bringing in Tyra in a minute here.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. All right. So the sheriff's office, right? So the salaries for the sheriff's office, again, referring back to the book. Oh, I'm looking at that one, right? So again, and then we'll see they're all in that exhibit. And again, so now we're talking another 3% for the non-sheriff's union employees. Now I'm going to have to go ahead. I'm going to have to go to a full screen here because I'm going to have to admit our guest here. Hold on. I got it. Hold on. Let me just stop this share for a minute.
Yeah.
Hold on. All right. All right, Tyra, you should be coming in.
Oh, can't hear you yet.
All right.
Okay. Now.
All right. Tyra, you want to give an audio check? All right.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You want to go video on? All right, Tyra, you should be coming in. Okay, perfect.
Hi.
Good. All right.
She needs to, or
All right.
turn the volume.
Yep, getting a little bit of feedback from you there, Tyra. All right, so watch that. All right.
That better?
Yep. So we're all row officers invited. No, actually, the most complicated and the most challenging, I guess, abolishment, establishment of positions. This is just a question that popped up. I saw, and again, we're all row officers invited. No, absolutely not. It wasn't actually my intent to invite any. However, as I was going through the agenda item under the clerk of courts, I found it sufficiently, I don't want to say complicated because we've seen it quite a few times and we had numerous discussions on it, but I thought it would better serve the public interest to have that particular row officer explain that one. If there's any row officer who at this time would like to come into this session, you're more than welcome to after Tyra's, and I'll go back and more than welcome to discuss it.
The meeting numbers are in the chat.
Yep.
So all you have to do is go to your Zoom
Yep.
app or whatever and put those in, and it'll
It'll
pop up.
put you up to admit. So,
Yeah.
okay. So what I'm going to do, Tyra, I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share to show the agenda. Okay. And
Okay.
then I'm going to let you discuss it. Now, also, I do have a setup here. If at any time, if you want to see the clerk of courts org chart, I can also bring that up here. But right now, I'm just going to go to the agenda. Okay. When I do the screen share. All right. So let's go ahead. Okay. All right. Tyra, you should also be able to see it on yours. So first and foremost, it's going to be motion to set the positions and salaries based upon exhibit RR1. But what I'd like to really dig into are going kind of step by step. And I believe it's A through J, HI through I, work down each one. Now, I will tell you, I have my own form and I actually have kind of arrows drawn and names. So I know as establishment and abolishment and rate changes take place, who they are. But how about talk a little bit first? I think people should know what the clerk of court does. What does the clerk of court do?
So the clerk of courts is an office under the Court of Common Pleas. It's a comprised of two divisions, the clerk of court's office, criminal division, and the collections division.
Mm-hmm.
The two offices together are comprised of a staff of 9.
Yep.
And the office is responsible for sending out all the paperwork and the party cases,
Okay.
court orders, and orders from the judges.
Okay. So you deal with the criminal side.
The criminal side, yes.
Okay.
The staff
And-
also is responsible for assessing all those criminal cases as well, and being in the courtroom with the hearings going on.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So I understand from the sessions we had and your request, you want to make a modification to the organizational structure of the clerk of court's office, which has a collections office that falls under it. Is that correct?
Correct. The clerk of courts is a dual office. It has the criminal side and the collection side.
Okay. All right. So what does that make?
I was just going to have you highlight
Which one?
the clerk of courts
Oh, okay. Well, it's right here.
or go to full screen with whichever one you want to.
Okay, hold on. Is that good?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead. If we could, Tyra, let's talk about the change in the rate of how about one, the order that you've decided to put these in, and then start from A and let's work all the way down to I.
Okay.
All right.
So the first one is basically on the agenda, bringing everyone up to over $11 an hour for
Okay.
the part-time clerical specialist there. That's the first motion is on there.
Mm-hmm. Is that a currently filled position?
That is not. That is a vacant position at this time.
Okay. And there is a hiring action out for that? Is it being?
There is. I do have some candidates in line for that position. I have not hired them yet due to the COVID and the possible shutdown again through the court system. So I would be more or less laying them off or furloughing them if that were an option. So at this time, I thought it best not to bring that person on board at this time.
Okay. Would it be helpful to show the organizational structure at this point, since we're going into the establishment? All right. Let me see if I can go ahead and make that happen without much of a challenge here. Okay, hold on.
They can see that.
They can see it?
Yeah, in a minute when it
Yeah.
catches up.
Well, okay, let's see if that's popping up.
Yeah, because it was on the other, now it's going to pop up.
Okay, if you should tell me.
Okay, I'll let you know. There's a bit of a lag.
Okay. Let me just see.
Yeah.
There it goes. All right. Okay, there it is.
You're
All right,
I'm
good.
sorry, yeah.
No, that's all right. Good. All right, so
So-
there it is, Tyra. So on the left, I understand is the existing, on the right is what you envision.
Right. So the left side is currently the structure of the two offices, the breakdown. The two offices being the left side being the clerk of courts, the right side being the collections office. And I have two individuals pretty much in supervisory positions at this point, followed by my second deputy under the clerk of courts, and then the staff that would be underneath those two individuals. On the
Okay.
right side, under the supervisory director position, I have two employees that would fall under that director position.
Where am I looking? Okay. Where
on the left side of your screen.
Okay. Yep.
So when you split that right down the middle underneath my name, that's left and right being the two offices.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So on the right side is my proposal for restructuring due to
Okay.
the situation that is presented with the clerk of courts and the collections office. So my proposal going down would be first in having one supervisor underneath me overseeing both offices,
Okay.
which would be my chief deputy or my first deputy, if you will.
Okay.
Underneath her in
Mhm.
equal proportion is my assistant chief deputy, which is my second deputy.
Mm-hmm.
And the collections coordinator is the proposed position.
Okay. All right.
And then the rest of the staff would fall underneath the second deputy, assistant chief deputy. It is on there. That was my first proposal, which we reverted back to second deputy.
Uh-huh.
So that person, then the second deputy, is in charge of all of those below that line. So
Okay.
my bench warrant clerk, my two deputy clerk positions are what I'm proposing in replacement of a collections clerk and a clerical specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have two clerical specialists, followed by my part-time underneath them.
Okay. You're part-time. Okay.
So the chain of command starts with having one supervisory, followed by my second deputy and the collections coordinator under the collections office.
Mhm.
And then the rest would follow underneath the second deputy.
So what about, does physical workspace change at all?
It does not.
It does not.
It does not. When I took office in January, we revised and repurposed things that we found in the basement, and I was
Okay.
able to make adequate spacing for everyone.
Okay. All right. Okay. So then the first one is to establish the position of one collections coordinator. And that was
Correct.
almost like a standalone over on that right side of your chart, right?
That is correct.
All right. Let me see something here. I'm going to see if I can
split screen.
pull both up. Hold on just a sec here. I know I can do it. I'm going to have to stop the share and then go to a full screen share. That should be, hold on, share desktop. Okay, watch this. All right, let's see if it pops up. Is it going to happen? Cross fingers.
Drum roll, please.
Yep. Is it? No. Is
Let's
it?
see.
It says it's sharing, but it's not.
There it
Oh,
goes.
there it
Yeah.
is. All right, there we go. All right. All right. Go ahead, Tyra. Now we
Okay.
can sit. All right.
So my whole proposal here is based on the fact that after 20 days of being in office this year,
Mm-hmm.
my director had taken FMLA leave, followed by 3 approvals of 3 extended medical leaves.
Mm-hmm.
So the job duties and responsibilities were there, if you will, but no one had known anything of what he did in his position. There was no cross training.
Mm-hmm.
So we had taken it upon ourselves through resources to research what needed to be done, how it needed to be done, so that the clerk of court's office would no longer be even further behind. And we found much more that is wrong with that office in February. There's almost 4 years of backlog that the staff had to undertake this year in the 11 months, in addition to making this office still productive in collecting on the cost fines and restitution of the cases. So the staff had gone above and beyond in excellence in completing every task that I had proposed to them to accomplish them ahead of schedule. And therefore, with those changes, we've streamlined the office far enough that we can basically omit a body, but reallocate and redistribute those job duties and responsibilities to others.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole proposal is based on seeking the compensation for all those extra job duties and responsibilities that these individuals are willing to continue to take on in the event that I can get the motions all passed through on the salary board tomorrow.
Okay. So I see that this collections coordinator going to a
Yes.
grade 10 step A.
Mhm.
Originally, that was a 5B
Correct.
position, correct?
Correct. Yes.
All right. So that's a pretty significant jump. And
Yes.
how do you justify that level of jump for this position?
The collections coordinator is a newly established position, is what I'm proposing.
Mhm.
She will be the only one in that office being responsible for collecting on the cost
Okay.
fines and restitutions on all of those cases, setting up payment plans and going after the delinquent cases in that office.
Okay, so this position it's newly established and the scope of duties and responsibilities are broader?
Correct.
Okay, all right, okay, that's good. All right, let's jump down to establish the 2 deputy clerks.
So the 2 deputy clerks are now replacing the clerical specialist and a collections clerk 2.
Mhm.
Since we no longer will need the office has been cross-trained to the point where we have more individuals now going into court,
Right.
processing the court paperwork and assessing cases. So we
Mhm.
now have 4 people in the office that can now assess cases
Okay.
that had not been the case in previous years.
All right.
So with those extra job duties and responsibilities with assessing the cases, the deputy clerk is the correct title and in the position of creating for these individuals.
Okay, all right, I see that. All right, all right. Let's go down. Now you have changing the rate
Mhm.
of the 2nd deputy. And that's a significant jump. That's going from a 7 to an 11. And we know that 5%, each step change in grade is a 5% increase. So a pretty significant increase there also.
Yes, it is.
Uh-huh.
And that grade step there is a change due to the fact of the extra job duties and responsibilities by abolishing a director's position and transferring those duties over to my 1st and 2nd deputy. Therefore, we don't have the extra body, we don't have the extra burden on the taxpayers to pay that very large salary along with FICA, benefits, pension, to eliminate that in order to compensate these individuals for that extra.
Okay, so that in the chart on the left, you can
Mhm.
see the 2nd deputy down under your 1st deputy, correct?
Mhm.
Right. Then that position actually becomes your assistant chief deputy, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. She's responsible for the office, the procedures of the office
Mhm.
in the event of my absence and my chief or 1st deputy.
Okay, all right. So then we go, your current 1st deputy,
Mhm.
right, is going to, again, simply go up 5 steps, so 15%, if I get it, step E to step K, more or less. So,
Right.
so 5.
That's
Right.
Going from F, G, H, I, J, K.
That's
Yeah, 6, 18. Okay, so 1834. All right. Okay. All right. Now, so this is my color code. Does that make sense? So you're abolishing one of the collection clerk positions. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm just looking at this, and this is not the order of sequence of what I had submitted, but neither here nor there. That is
This
correct.
is draft. This was the earlier draft.
Okay,
This may
very
not
good.
have been at 2 o'clock.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait a
on-
minute, something's out of line here, but yes, you're right.
Yeah, this may not have been at 2 o'clock on what day was it? Friday, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. That was the draft. Okay. All right. And then you're abolishing the 2nd collection clerk, correct?
Mhm.
All right. Yep. Because that's those collection clerks you can see under the Bureau of Collections there. All right. Got it. All right. Now I'm getting it. All right. Then your clerical specialist.
Mhm.
That's another abolishment.
Mhm.
All right. And then finally, you're abolishing the position of the Director, Bureau of Collections. So this position here, is that
Right.
correct?
Right.
Okay.
So I'd have one supervisory position over 8, that one person would supervise 8 individuals.
The chief, what you're calling the
Correct.
chief deputy?
Right.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right, good. Is there anything else you want to tell us about what you're trying to accomplish with this, Tyra?
Well, basically, in a nutshell,
Yeah.
I'm looking to reallocate, reposition duties and responsibilities to the staff that I have highlighted there for those increases in wages. With that comes the abolishment of the director's position. In the event I can't have the compensation granted and approved for the individuals who are willing to take on their duties and responsibilities that I'm reallocating, we would still need that body to perform those duties and responsibilities. So I would be put in a position where someone would need to do those duties and responsibilities in the
Right.
event that it can't get passed.
Okay. And I do understand that conversations we had, and it may have been on Thursday or Friday, that understanding this is the draft agenda. I know there was an
Right.
update to this section submitted, but it was
Mhm.
my understanding that at the end of the day, within a row officer or within an area of motions, those could be modified on the fly if need
Absolutely.
be. All right.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Tyra, there's a question came in. So it says, how often would you and the chief deputy be out? And it doesn't seem cost effective to have such a large increase when that situation should not happen often, if ever.
It does happen more frequently than what one thinks. There's a lot of meetings that a row officer does have to attend to, that when you're out of the office, the first deputy then is in charge of making sure everything is running properly and smoothly. There are situations that arise where her and I both may be out of the office, and then the second deputy is in charge through that absence. But it does happen. It's a if you will, a business office. There's different things that will pull someone out of the office at any given point in time.
I think it was probably thought of like if you called in sick and then the other person, was taking some other day off or whatever. I guess it's more like that. But you're talking like just even being out of the office, not being off the complex or the
campus,
out of
right.
the campus,
Yeah.
but that you
Correct.
would just not
Right.
be there physically.
That's right. There are
Correct.
different requirements during the day
Right.
that would pull individuals
Sure.
out of the office, but still to have someone there at a supervisory level to handle that. That's a good
And
question.
if I can just touch back on the other part of that question, the proposal that I'm making is very cost effective in the event that it is saving the taxpayers just over $25,000 by abolishing the director's position that is payroll only
Okay.
with these increases and reallocation, as I stated, with job duties and responsibilities. It is a savings of $25,000 plus with this proposal, as you see it on the screen, to the taxpayers.
Okay. All right. No, that's a great point. So what you're seeing is because of the abolishing of the position, you're seeing a redistribution of duties and responsibilities to other individuals, currently existing positions. Some of them are being renamed, retitled because they're picking up additional duties and responsibilities. Yet at the end of the day, there's still a 25K savings to the county residents, to the county.
Only on the payroll expenditure line, which does not include the FICA tax, the benefits, and the pension.
Okay, all right. So
With that included, it's over 50,000.
okay, all right, got it. Yep, that makes sense. All right. Well, Tyra, thank you so much for trying to
welcome.
help
Thank you.
explain it to us and those who are listening. I appreciate it, and best of luck tomorrow afternoon as you make your motions as a member of the salary board temporarily during your time there to present the changes that you think are necessary for your office to make it more effective and more efficient. Thanks so much.
Thank you and Happy New Year.
All right. Good night. Happy New Year. All right.
Okay, there was Kayla had another redirect, I
Okay.
guess. She was talking about going back to the conversation about the position about the passports.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Kayla said that position is not solely for passports.
Okay.
Passports aside, our cases are significantly increased.
Mm-hmm.
Clerk of Courts has a staff of 10, and they generate a third of the new cases our office generates. The staff ratio is antiquated.
Yeah.
Also, in the past, we had judgments come in once a year. That's a total of 600 cases from one firm. This year and moving forward, we are getting 1,200 to 1,500 cases from that firm. That's 3 months worth of new cases. we average 500 new cases a month.
Mhm.
That's not the work that comes from managing the current active cases. Be mindful, in the past, the county paid, prior to my being there, overtime and comp time for the full-time employees to work added hours to process those cases.
Mhm.
The more staff, the more work that is generated throughout the office, which in turn generates more revenue for the county.
Oh, good point. Good. Matter of fact, that'll be there on the feed. I want to print that out later.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
or yeah,
it'll be
okay,
on
no,
here
good.
on the feed.
All right, well, thank you, Kayla. Sorry it took us a little while
get to you,
to
yeah.
get to that. Thanks so much for that insight and added clarity to that particular position and its duties and responsibilities. So that's rolling through clerk of courts. Then what happens next, right? It's that sheriffs, right? Remember we talked about the deputy sheriffs.
Did you respond to her? Oh,
I'm taking that under
under
consideration. That was
consideration.
making a
that was
point.
okay, sorry.
Clarification,
Okay,
right. No,
okay. Sorry.
it wasn't
Just-
really a question. It was
It
a
was
statement.
making a
It
point,
was
yeah.
a statement. All right.
Yeah.
So there it is, right? That's the talking about, let's see right there. That's, for the bargaining unit, part of the sheriff's office, because there are members in that office who are not, quote unquote, in the bargaining unit. Let's call it a union, the Sheriff's Association. All right. Now, these are all the ones, the Board of Commissioners. All right. So these are the ones that fall directly under the Board of Commissioners. So you have three stovepipes, right? You have the departments that fall under the commissioners, the 2021, once you include the public defender that fall under the commissioners, right? Then you have the row offices, right? Prothonotary, clerk of courts, register of wills, district attorney, et cetera, right? And then finally, you have the courts. So these are the ones that report directly to the Board of Commissioners. All right, so you'll see in the animal shelter, right? This is that I'm talking about, getting everyone up to over $11 an hour. So you'll see where and normally it would be a 3% increase. This one is actually going to go up 6%. Because we have to get these positions up over that $11. And the first step after over $11 is the B in the 4, right? We're moving everyone up to the 4, all right? There, all right? All right. And that, again, this is increasing it, right? Now, this is really, actually, we're going to establish an additional full-time position. There's only one full-time position, that's Tom Connors,
Right.
and he basically works truly as close to 24/7 as anyone does in the
In
county.
the county, yeah.
And understand that is quite frankly, it's a high risk, high liability area. And there should never be one full-time person manning that office. It just isn't practical or reasonable to have one individual.
Right.
And there is a lot of fluctuation in part-timers.
Just as we saw with Tyra, she not only has one, a deputy, chief deputy.
She is two.
She has two.
Two,
Because
right.
it's like, yeah, that's a
Right.
that's a pretty
Right.
realistic scenario.
Right. So think about this. Tom Connors get pulled away to run to Pittsburgh during the week instead on the weekend, right? You know what I mean? So again, someone has to
Someone
be
has
there.
to be
You'd
there.
like to think you're part-timers, but again, your part-timers might only be working 4 or 5 hours a day, or, depending on how that rotation is. So we made a conscious decision and think it's in the best interest of county residents and the shelter and that which they care for, to have 2 full-time positions. Keep in mind also that's $11.49. Well, that's not much, but you know what? A full-time position in the county comes with benefits, right? The medical, the dental, the vision, the retirement, all
Right.
those things that make $11.49 much more palatable.
And the potential that at least you're going to get the cost of living increase each year if it's left up to Chris.
Yeah, because there could be years when you get nothing, and that has happened. Last year they got a 3%. The year before they did not.
Anything, right?
So hey, maybe in the long run you might make it better under the Chris Lukasevich plan. Right now, it doesn't mean there's not a ceiling and a cap. It's not, if inflation goes up 15%, you're going to see a 15% pay raise, right? There has to be a logical, reasonable cap, based upon budget constraints. And that's the burden being put on the taxpayer. So again, you're joining us and we're finishing up here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. This is Carbon Matters live streaming the marathon annual salary board edition. Even with Joe Stearns, when I was talking home rule, didn't
go
take
this long,
right?
No,
But
I
again,
know.
so
my
imagine
knees are hurting, and I'm sitting, and my knees are
all
hurting.
all right. So, and again, though, we are abolishing 2 part-time positions, right? And again, that helps offset. Matter of fact, if I recall, one of those positions we probably never filled anyhow,
Right.
you know, but it
Couldn't
has
find
been
anybody.
budgeted, but it just hasn't, you know, from the previous year. Archives, this is the standard, right? Change the rate. Agency on Aging, right? There's a couple of changes, right? Changing the rates of these individuals, right? And they're just going up the 3%, right? You see a standard 3%. Building and grounds, this is really getting our cleaning folks, right, up over that rate. And again, there are some cleaning folks that do fall under union also. It's just one of the little nuances, right? So here we are, we're getting everyone up, these individual positions up. Now, not all these positions are filled, right?
Right.
Not all these are filled. Children and youth.
If you're looking for a job with the county, be checking their portal, right? Or not the portal.
But the employment under
employment under the
carboncounty.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Children and youth, there's 2 positions, right? Caseworker positions that will be going up. Good thing about children and youth services position, 80% of those, 80% of the cost is taken over by the state. Right. So it's much more palatable. Keep in mind, the majority of the positions in children and youth services align up with their fiscal year, which is in June. So you'll see a lot of positions come up probably in March and April when we'll be looking at the children and youth positions. In the commissioner's office, here's other positions that will be coming up. You can see a lot of them are simply going, 2 of them are going up to, you know, the 1116, right? The parking attendance ambassadors. Right. And there you have a couple steps. Executive secretary, open records would be going up also, right? All right. All right. Who do we got? Parking meter, right? Parking attendants. We have a lot of parking attendants. Look, they're all part-time, those positions. They don't work that many hours. We have a couple gentlemen, who actually just come during the big events, like fall foliage and stuff like that. All right.
So they're like on the roster. They don't work, but
we're on page 7. We're going to 9. So in the communication center, we are going to abolish 1 position and establish a 2 IC. So Mr. Markle will be nominated for this position of an assistant manager. There's actually no deputy up there at the 911 center. So obviously with this comes additional duties and responsibilities, no longer simply the 911 addressing coordinator. In the absence of the director, he will fill that responsibility.
And we love the 911 center.
Yep, they do a great job up there 24/7, keeping cool, getting
Saving
emergency
lives.
services out of there, enabling the savings of lives through the deployment of emergency services personnel.
If they talk someone down.
Oh, that's, I don't know if that has happened. At least not in my time. Right. All right.
Yeah.
So love those 911 operators.
That's right.
Myself being a commo guy. So anyone who ever criticizes Chris Lukasevich when it comes to 911 operators, look, I was an 05 Bravo and 18 Echo for about 9 years. So
which means what to the average person?
Right. I know communications.
There you go.
Right. I know communications inside out. So, there's no one I think better able to talk about communications better than I, and can commiserate and empathize and sympathize, although some people would argue otherwise.
They would argue
Some
otherwise.
would argue otherwise. Oh, no, on social media.
Yeah, but they don't know the full facts.
And that is, ignorance is bliss. Corrections. That's one of those positions, right? And I need to check on that one, because why isn't that
Falling under the.
falling under the union. I'll have to check on that one tomorrow. All right. Here's a big one, right?
Mhm.
Rocky and I have been adamant about not yet is it time to hire another full-timer. Another full-timer. Don't disregard the title right now. All right, here we are. So this is what we decided. Now understand, we've only completed the third election on the new voting machines. We had the pandemic, we had Act 77, we had a presidential election.
It was the perfect
All
storm.
those things coming together that created enormous stresses. And you know what? By no means were either of those elections run flawlessly from a process procedure, from transparency, being fair. Absolutely. In Carbon County, I'm referring to, I'm only speaking for Carbon County.
Yeah.
We can argue about other places, how fair or unfair they may or may not have been. But I know in Carbon County,
everything was above board.
it was all above board for sure. You know, even though we did have our own challenges, right? But what we decided is that office does require a highly motivated individual who can, in the absence of the director, assume that position. They understand election code. They understand Act 77 and the changes that have come into the election code. They're going to be able to teach and train the judges of elections and the workers we have at the polls.
Mhm.
Notice though, let's see, what you're going to see, this is a term position. It's only for 3 years. It is not a permanent position. So this is something I introduced so that we can assess the validity of the position over the next 3 years.
Sure.
And then right,
make a determination.
this board or the next board will be free to make the decision to continue it based upon the recommendation of the existing board.
I think you feeling the pain of what past boards have passed.
Right.
It's good. It's
Right.
only good to do it up until your term is over and
Right.
then let the new board make their own way.
Right. Because you go to war with the army you have, not the one you want. So again, we're going to let this sort out over the next, it'll be 6 elections, basically, that'll play out. 2 municipal elections that are starting this coming year. And I think, again, it'll give us a good sense of the value of the position. And if we get the right person, I have no doubt that this position will continue to be renewed or will convert to permanent status. And this could convert to a permanent status sooner. If in a year or 2 years, it's clearly a position that needs to be
Needed.
permanent, the next annual salary board could indeed go
Reflect
ahead and extend it to a permanent status or change it to a permanent status. All right. But also what's going to happen is there's the 3 part-time clerks. And again, they come in during election time, right? I will tell you else. There were over $28,000 in overtime paid this year for the election. That's
Wow.
how challenging it was.
Yeah.
And we had seemingly a handful of part-timers. So we're establishing that full-timer, right? That's going to help mitigate that $28,000 of overtime. Plus, we're going to go ahead and continue to have part-timers that will come in during the surge period. And we are going to abolish 1 position of 4 part-timers. So you'll have 3 full-timers, 3 part-timers. All right. And the part-timers we had this year, some of them, we had them capped at 500 hours. We had them
Right.
you know,
So
not
instead
o-
of the
yeah,
1,000.
Yeah. Not only did we have $28,000 in overtime, but we had 1 individual who fell under the commissioner's authority and responsibilities from another department who was basically detailed for a couple months working
with
at
the
elections. So,
So outside their duty,
outside, yep.
what
all
they
right.
usually do. Yeah.
So human resources, the assistant, the argument was made to increase his salary, both grade and step. All right, there's only 3 personnel in that office. The director of human
It
resources.
wasn't grade and step. It was just grade.
What? No, you went from 8 to 9.
Right.
Right.
The step stayed the same.
Yeah, but on that different
But on
scale, it
scale,
would
yeah,
be more.
you're
Right.
right.
All right. So IT, and we're almost done here, aren't we? Yep, we're on it. Right.
Yay.
Information technology. So again, what you're seeing here, the yellows are that same position, and the grays, right? It's a change of status for individuals. The existing system was the system analyst. His duties and responsibilities are greatly expanded beyond what he was hired. He's not an analyst. He actually administers the entire system, plus other duties and responsibilities, and a lot more when it was, and as is, an analyst. Very little independence in duties and responsibilities. Everything was like under the supervision of. Whereas here is the administrator, much
Yes,
more
more.
independent action, right? Now, what we've done here is, again, first, this was the IT specialist. But the fact is, now we're using Zoom, we're using Facebook. You know,
It's a
those
lot
things,
more,
that has
yeah.
expanded,
Yeah.
and he has to be
On
responsible.
the live stream with
The
yeah,
live streaming,
for
the new
meetings,
system,
yeah.
we put in a new multimedia system in the
Yeah.
commissioner's room so that we could effectively live stream.
In 1 year, he's literally gone from not doing much to
Well, doing
a
different,
lot,
a
or,
lot
you know,
more in
but
a
not that he
picking up,
didn't do much before,
but
but
picking up a whole
yeah,
different
different.
duties and responsibilities. Obviously, a lot more focus on social media now,
Mhm.
right? And again, that's all about transparency, getting government
Yeah.
into your living room like we are right now, or onto your smart device. But we
Which,
put,
funnily enough, Chris had that in mind for transparency, but then with COVID,
it helped
ended
me
up-
expedite
yeah,
expedite
or
it.
to sell it, because
'Cause,
yeah,
oh, they would have been fighting tooth and nail.
the whole time.
Yeah, it would
But
have been.
it
Yeah,
actually has turned out to be a wonderful thing. And
Yep.
and the fact that they were just a few steps ahead of where they would have been had Chris not been
yeah.
pushing.
So I've gone from official county videographer to no longer having to do it. We're transferring that to Nicholas and
That's
the
right.
social media technician. You know, so
And
good.
he's getting paid for it.
Right, and he's getting paid for it now.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
instead of the
right.
last year where I've been, you know, having
Yeah,
them, we're
Chris.
having them do it for free. So thank you, Nicholas. So hopefully those motions will pass. And those were well justified by the IT director. Now, there was a request to establish a social media technician. Again, I had to weigh, you know, could we take on a whole nother person? Was there enough work to justify it? And I didn't think there was to justify a wholly new position. So we increased duties and responsibilities of the IT specialist and compensated him for those additional duties and responsibilities. These gentlemen, by the way, happen to be some of the few 40-hour workers in the county. All right, parks, some standard raises that are taking place, right there. And then you'll start to see the 11-16s, right? All those seasonal rangers and maintenance
That
guys
worked during
going
the
there.
summer.
Veterans Affairs.
Oh,
Christine Leclerc
good.
made a strong case for this part-time VA, Veterans Administration certified
Service officer.
service officer who will, the concept is for that individual, he or she, to go out and be working in the municipalities. So you don't have to come
All the way
to
to the
county.
See,
That individual will be moving around to the different municipalities, you know, and hosting opportunities for engagement. They'll have their laptop, their printer, everything right there,
what they need.
so they can help veterans there and not have them having to travel to the county seat.
Right.
Right. All right. So I think that has a strong one. All right. So here's the ASME and Teamsters, right? Those contracts we talked about that have a set 3%. Really, that is it. In 2
Yay.
hours. Look, this is 2 hours. It'll probably take 2 hours tomorrow for us also as we work through this. I think the big challenges you'll see, the longest discussion will probably be on the clerk of court positions. That's going to be the one that's going to be the longest conversation tomorrow. That'll be last on the agenda for row officers. It starts at 2:00. Let me stop the screen share.
Yeah.
All right. So 2:00 tomorrow is the salary board. Immediately following, we'll jump right into the weekly commissioners meeting
So there's not a commissioners meeting on
on
Thursday.
Thursday. Right.
It's tomorrow.
Right.
Is the big deal.
And also, so if you have any questions or concerns, obviously, you can give me a call at 570-503-6780. You can do that all the way through tomorrow if it's specific to the salary board. If it's not an urgent call or, and it's not annual salary board, push it off till after tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be full on
Full on.
focused on the salary board and even prepping for the commissioners meeting and reviewing the agenda.
Just let's recap it. What what do you want people to do as far as before 9:00 tomorrow if they want to be a change in this county?
Right. No, if they feel 3% pay raise across the board for non-union personnel is fair, email that, right? Make a public comment to it's basically CCOMMIS@ptd.net.
It's already in the comments, in the chat.
It's in the comments, right? And again, if you have a particular position on any of these positions that I have annotated or noted here, I will tell you this agenda is on the County Commissioners Facebook page, and it's also on the C4 Facebook page. If it's not already on the website, first thing in the morning, it will be put up. We had a little timing sequencing issue, so it might not be on the website, but we did get it up on the Facebook page, so you can look at that.
I think too, in light of what we've gone through the torture tonight, I think I know I have a better understanding, and I actually hear this not all the time from Chris, but he
gets dinner talk for us.
Thankfully. But it's a lot clearer to me now. And I think it's important if we at least say, say what your opinion is, whether you think that a 3% is fair, or if you think that it should just be
tied to inflation.
Right. Or merit-based, that it should only go to those people who are working hard and busting their butts for us,
Yep.
And we're the taxpayers. We're the ones who are paying these salaries. And again, we don't want it to be this free for all where it's like, yeah, everybody get 3%. Yahoo.
Right.
Let's at least be let's be taxpayers that are informed and to speak up and be the change.
Yeah. Be part, again, look, I'll gladly be the tip of the spear, but every spear needs a staff, right?
Right. It sounds funny, like we're your staff.
Right. But we're talking, that pole part of the spear, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'll be the point of the spear. I have no problem. That's
Just
I love being up
understand
front.
he's the lone voice.
Lone wolf.
No, the lone voice.
Yeah.
Is crying in the wilderness,
Right.
but the thing is, the more people that can back him up and say, this is what we need to be doing as a county government, then you will be heard. At least, they'll read out, what they'll do is they'll say any
Public comments.
yeah. Concerning the salary board, and then they'll read off any emails that have come in before 9:00 tomorrow morning, and they'll say your name and they'll say what you've said. And so I think that if nothing else, it's just like, with Trump asking everybody to write letters and, like physical letters and stuff that are probably caught up somewhere.
Right. You'll never get them.
It shows that people care. It shows that people are interested. It shows that people are willing to make a change, or that want to change. If they never hear from us, they'll keep doing whatever they want.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, right, if you've probably seen tonight at some portion, the carbon for home rule, right? That's about having a government study commission, right? And one of the ways we can get control of the budget, we can get control of our county government, is by having a government study commission look and see if we couldn't have a better form of government. And I do believe home rule and a home rule charter is that better form of government. And you're going to hear me a lot promoting and advocating for a government study commission, merit-based pay raises, recall elections. These are all things that can be incorporated and are incorporated into charters within our neighbors, actually, who have our home rule counties, right? So again, be a voice, have your voice heard, right? Do public comments in commissioners meeting to include tomorrow. And again, I want to thank you all for anyone who's endured these last 2 hours.
We're down to 14.
Again,
Thank you.
I'll continue to be your voice. I'll continue to be as transparent as the system allows me to be, providing you the information to be informed citizens, better voters, better
citizens.
residents,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I enjoyed these 2 hours because this was
He
my,
loves this.
hey, this was my prep session. I'm going to tell
That's
you,
right.
you guys were part of my prep session here, right?
Whatever.
Just forced me to go dig deeper back
Yeah.
into all this so that I can ensure my votes reflect my beliefs and values and are in consideration of those who
The
elected me,
constituents.
the
Yeah.
constituents.
Well, I think you'll see too that you've seen tonight that he's done his homework. He's done binders worth of homework. So
It was necessary.
if
for all
nothing
of us.
else, he's at least earning
Yeah,
his pay.
right. Like what my most recent saying is, and I always love coming up with sayings, you may not like where I stand, but you'll know where I stand. All right. Because if
Right.
it matters to you, you know, it still matters to me. Doesn't mean I'll agree with that matter, but it matters to me to know
Yeah.
that you have a concern or an issue or a position.
Yeah.
Have a great night. Happy
Yes,
New Year to
Happy New
everyone.
Year.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.